The lunch rush at the Meridian had just ended, and Lily stood by the service station counting her tips. $43. Not bad for a Tuesday afternoon, but not great either. She tucked the money into the front pocket of her black apron and began resetting tables for the dinner crowd. The restaurant sat on the 40th floor of a Manhattan high-rise, with windows that looked out over the city like picture frames holding perfectly captured moments of urban beauty. Lily had been working at the Meridian for just over 3 years now. At 32, she'd mastered the art of moving through the world without being seen. She knew exactly how to refill a water glass without interrupting a conversation, how to suggest the perfect wine pairing without sounding pretentious, and how to remember that Mr. Wilson from Table 12 liked extra lemons with his sparkling water, while his wife secretly preferred still but would never order it when dining with him. The restaurant catered to people who were used to being catered to: investment bankers, foreign diplomats, Broadway producers, and the occasional movie star who wanted a quiet dinner away from paparazzi. Most of them barely glanced at Lily as she took their orders. To them, she was just another part of the restaurant's perfectly orchestrated service, there when needed, invisible when not. "Lily, can you handle tables 14 through 18 tonight?" Her manager, Ray, asked, passing by with a stack of freshly printed menus. "Tina called in sick and we've got a full house." "Sure," Lily nodded, mentally calculating how she'd manage 5 tables at once in the restaurant's busiest section. "Is Chef doing the truffle risotto special again?" "I need to know what to push." "Yeah, and make sure you mention the wine pairing. We've got cases of that Barolo to move," Ray said, already walking away, his attention shifting to a small imperfection in one of the table settings. Lily continued arranging silverware, lining up each fork and knife at perfect right angles to the edge of the table. Her movements were precise, automatic, skills honed through years of practice. Much like the other talent she kept hidden. None of her co-workers knew that before she became a waitress, Lily had been a student at Juilliard, a promising concert pianist whose professors had once used words like prodigy and extraordinary to describe her playing. Music had been her everything, until it wasn't. During her second year, her mother got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it. The medical bills started piling up immediately. Her father had passed away years earlier, leaving Lily and her mother to face this battle alone. So Lily did what she needed to do. She took a leave of absence from school, promising herself and her professors it would just be for a semester. She picked up waitressing shifts and gave piano lessons on the side, trying to keep up with the mountain of expenses that grew with each new treatment, each new specialist, each new glimmer of hope that eventually faded. By the time her mother passed away, 15 months later, Lily's scholarship had expired. The momentum of her budding career had stalled completely. The thought of returning to Juilliard, of facing the life she'd put on hold and the expectations she could no longer meet, filled her with a kind of dread she couldn't overcome. Her hands, once confident across the keys, now shook at the mere thought of performing. Something inside her had broken along with her heart, so she kept waitressing. First at a diner near their old apartment in Queens, then at a mid-range Italian place in the theater district, and finally here at the Meridian, where the tips were good enough to help her slowly chip away at the debt she'd accumulated during her mother's illness. She had a small apartment now. Nothing fancy, just a studio in Astoria with a fold-out couch and a tiny kitchen. But it had one feature she couldn't live without: enough space in the corner for an upright piano she'd found on Craigslist. The instrument was older than she was, with yellowed keys and a slightly tinny sound on the higher octaves, but it was hers. And on Tuesday mornings, her only consistent day off, she would sit and play for hours, keeping her fingers limber, keeping the music alive inside her even if no one else ever heard it. Well, almost no one. Once a month she would visit Harmony House, a small assisted living facility in her neighborhood. The residents there didn't care that she hadn't finished at Juilliard or that her repertoire wasn't perfect anymore. They just loved hearing someone play the old songs they remembered from their youth. For those brief hours, Lily felt like herself again. Not the invisible waitress, but the musician she'd been born to be. Daydreaming again. The voice of May, one of the other servers, pulled Lily back to the present. May was arranging a fresh batch of white roses in the small vases that adorned each table. "Sorry, just thinking about what to do on my day off tomorrow," Lily said with a small smile. "Let me guess. Another thrilling day of laundry and grocery shopping?" May teased. They'd started at the Meridian around the same time, and had developed the kind of friendship that exists primarily within the walls of the workplace. Genuine, but contained. Something like that, Lily replied. She never talked about the piano. It felt too personal, too much like exposing a wound that hadn't fully healed. Music belonged to a different life now, one that existed only in the quiet of her apartment or the warm common room at Harmony House. The afternoon faded into evening, and the Meridian transformed as it did every night. The lights dimmed to a warm amber glow, candles were lit at each table, and the day's second sommelier arrived, adjusting his bow tie as he reviewed the wine list. The dinner crowd would be arriving soon, people who spent more on a single meal than Lily made in a week. As she changed into a fresh uniform in the staff room, Lily overheard Ray talking to someone in the hallway. His voice carried that distinctive tone of controlled panic that restaurant managers reserve for unexpected problems. What do you mean he canceled? The gala is in 3 days. Ray's voice rose slightly before he caught himself. No, I understand food poisoning isn't something you can plan for, but this is the Meridian's biggest charity event of the year. We have the governor coming, for crying out loud! Lily finished buttoning her crisp white shirt and slipped back into her black shoes, curious despite herself. The annual charity gala was indeed the restaurant's most prestigious event. It transformed the entire floor into an elegant fundraising venue, with tickets going for $1,000 a plate. The staff worked overtime for weeks preparing for it, and the tips were legendary. As she stepped into the hallway, she saw Ray hanging up his phone, his face flushed with stress. Everything okay? She asked, straightening her tie. Ray ran a hand through his thinning hair. Anton Riviera just canceled. Food poisoning, apparently. From eating at his competitor's restaurant, which would be ironic if it wasn't such a disaster for us, Lily recognized. The name Anton Riviera was a well-known pianist who specialized in the kind of sophisticated, background music perfect for high-end events. He was a regular fixture at galas and fundraisers across the city. Can't you find someone else? She asked, adjusting her apron. 3 days before the event? Everyone good is already booked, Ray sighed. I've got calls out to some agencies, but I'm not hopeful. We might have to go with recorded music, which the board chair will hate. She's very specific about the ambiance of live piano. Lily felt a strange flutter in her chest, a sensation she hadn't experienced in years. It was the feeling she used to get just before walking on stage, equal parts terror and exhilaration. Before she could think better of it, words tumbled out of her mouth. I can play. Ray looked at her blankly, as if she'd suddenly started speaking another language. You can what? Play the piano, Lily said, her voice steadier than she felt. I studied at Juilliard. Ray's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. You went to Juilliard? And now you're waiting tables? The question stung, even though Lily had asked herself the same thing countless times over the years. Life happens, she said simply. But I can still play. And I know the kind of music you need for events like this. Ray studied her for a long moment, clearly weighing his limited options against the risk of putting an untested server behind a grand piano at the restaurant's most important event. You'd really have to be good, he said finally. These people, they can tell the difference. I know, Lily replied. I used to be one of those people. Something in her tone must have convinced him because Ray nodded slowly. Okay, come in tomorrow morning. The rental company is delivering the grand piano at 10. You can show me what you can do and we'll take it from there. As Ray walked away to deal with the next crisis of the evening, Lily stood frozen in the hallway, suddenly aware of what she'd just volunteered for. After nearly a decade of playing only for herself or for people who wouldn't judge her technical skills, she'd just offered to perform in front of the exact crowd she'd been most afraid of. The elite, the educated, the ones who would know immediately if she wasn't good enough. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up her order pad. What had she done? And more importantly, could she actually go through with it? The thought of sitting at that piano, feeling the weight of all those expectant gazes on her back, made her stomach twist into knots, but beneath the fear, buried under years of doubt and regret, a tiny flame of excitement flickered to life. Maybe, just maybe, this was the second chance she'd never allowed herself to hope for. Lily barely slept that night. Her tiny apartment felt even smaller as she paced from wall to wall, playing pieces in her head, moving her fingers through the air as if pressing invisible keys. At midnight, she finally sat at her upright piano, gently placing her hands on the keys without pressing down, afraid to wake her neighbors but desperate to feel the familiar touch beneath her fingers. What had she been thinking? It had been years since she'd played for anyone who could truly judge her abilities. The monthly visits to Harmony House were different. The elderly residents were happy with simple melodies that reminded them of their youth. They didn't care if she missed a note in a Chopin nocturne or simplified a difficult passage in a Liszt composition. But the charity gala at the Meridian? That was another world entirely. These would be people who attended the Philharmonic, who had season tickets to Carnegie Hall, who could instantly recognize the difference between a talented amateur and a true professional. By 6 in the morning, after a fitful night with maybe 3 hours of actual sleep, Lily gave up on rest entirely. She showered, then stood before her closet, suddenly aware that she owned nothing appropriate for an audition. She settled on black pants and a navy blue blouse. Simple, clean, the nicest things she owned that weren't her waitress uniform. On the subway ride to the Meridian, she felt like a fraud. The restaurant opened for lunch at 11, but Ray had told her to come at 10 when the rental piano would arrive. That gave her at most an hour to convince him she was good enough to play at their most prestigious event of the year. Her stomach knotted with each stop of the train, the familiar stations passing by in a blur as her mind raced through all the ways this could go wrong. The restaurant looked different in the morning light. Without the dimmed evening ambiance and flickering candles, the Meridian was just a space, elegant but ordinary, with staff bustling around preparing for the day. A cleaning crew was finishing up, polishing the windows that showcased the Manhattan skyline. The breakfast chef was prepping for the private morning meetings that some financial firms held in the restaurant's private dining rooms. And there, in the center of the main dining area where several tables had been temporarily moved aside, sat a gleaming black grand piano. Lily's heart skipped at the sight of it. The instrument was magnificent. A Steinway, she guessed. Probably worth more than she'd make in 5 years. There she is. Our secret pianist, Ray called out, emerging from his office with a clipboard in hand. He wasn't alone. Beside him walked a woman Lily recognized as Vivian Chen, the event coordinator for all major functions at the Meridian. Vivian was impeccably dressed in a tailored pantsuit, her expression professionally neutral as she assessed Lily. "This is your waitress who claims to be a Juilliard dropout?" Vivian asked, not bothering to hide the skepticism in her voice. Ray shrugged. "Worth a shot. Anton's agency sent over 3 possibilities, but none are available. 2 are booked for other events and 1 is in Europe." Lily felt her cheeks flush. They were talking about her as if she wasn't standing right there, a feeling she was unfortunately familiar with after years of serving people who looked through her rather than at her. "I didn't drop out," she said, the words coming out more forcefully than she'd intended. Both Ray and Vivian turned to look at her, surprised by her tone. "I took a leave of absence to care for my mother. She was sick. I never went back, but I didn't drop out." The distinction felt important somehow, a small piece of dignity she needed to claim. Vivian's expression softened slightly. "I apologize for the assumption. But you understand our concern. The gala is our flagship event with donors who expect perfection." "I understand," Lily said, stepping past them toward the piano. "May I?" Ray gestured toward the instrument. "That's why we're here." Lily approached the piano slowly, almost reverently. She ran her fingers lightly across the polished wood before sitting down on the bench. It had been so long since she'd played on an instrument of this quality. Her own upright piano, with its slightly sticky E-flat key and somewhat dull tone in the lower register, was a toy compared to this masterpiece. She adjusted the bench, acutely aware of Ray and Vivian watching her every move. She placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. She'd chosen Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece that showcased technical skill while remaining accessible to most listeners. The first notes floated into the air, tentative at first, like a person testing cold water with their toes, but as her fingers remembered their purpose, as the muscle memory of thousands of hours of practice returned to her body, Lily felt something unlock inside her chest. The music flowed through her, each note precise yet somehow more than just sound. It was emotion made audible. The delicate, dreamlike quality of Debussy's composition filled the restaurant, bouncing off the windows and wrapping around the empty tables. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to sink into the piece completely, forgetting about Ray and Vivian, forgetting about the gala, forgetting even about her own fears. There was only the music, the feeling of the perfectly weighted keys beneath her fingers, and the joy that came from creating something beautiful. As the final notes faded, Lily opened her eyes, suddenly remembering where she was and why. She turned to face Ray and Vivian, bracing herself for their judgment. What she saw surprised her. Ray's eyes were wide, his clipboard dangling forgotten from his fingertips, and Vivian, professional, always composed Vivian, had one hand pressed to her heart, her expression one of undisguised wonder. "My God," Ray said finally, "you actually did go to Juilliard. That was—" Vivian seemed at a loss for words, which Lily suspected was a rare occurrence for the polished event coordinator. "That was exquisite." Relief washed over Lily like a wave, followed immediately by a rush of pride she hadn't felt in years. She'd done it. She'd played for critical ears and hadn't been found wanting. "Can you play something more upbeat?" Vivian asked, moving closer to the piano. "Something that would work during cocktail hour?" Lily nodded and turned back to the keys. She played a jazzier arrangement of Summertime, then transitioned into a sophisticated version of a popular song that had been on the radio recently. She finished with a Gershwin piece that showcased her ability to handle complex rhythms. By the time she finished her impromptu audition, 3 servers and the head chef had gathered at the edge of the dining room, drawn by the music. "I think we've found our pianist," Ray said, a note of wonder still in his voice. "Can you handle a 3-hour set on Thursday night? We'd need you from 7 to 10 covering cocktails and dinner." Lily's mind raced. Thursday was her usual dinner shift. She'd be giving up a night of good tips, but the opportunity to play again, to be seen as a musician rather than just a server. "We'll pay you what we were going to pay, Anton," Vivian added, already making notes on her phone. "And we can have the staff uniform altered for you. Black dress instead of the server's outfit." The offer stunned Lily. Anton Riviera commanded professional rates for his performances. It would be more money for one night than she typically made in 2 weeks of shifts. Yes, I can do it," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Perfect," Vivian said briskly, her professional demeanor returning. "I'll send you the event schedule and our expectations for the musical selections. We'll want to review your planned repertoire, of course." Lily nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by what was happening. After years of believing that part of her life was over, she was being handed a chance to step back into it, even if just for one night. As Ray and Vivian walked away, already discussing other aspects of the event, Lily remained at the piano, her fingers resting lightly on the keys. The other staff members drifted back to their tasks, but not before one of the newer servers gave her a thumbs up and a grin. For the rest of her shift that day, Lily moved through the Meridian in a daze. She took orders, delivered food, and refilled wine glasses with her usual efficiency, but her mind was elsewhere, already planning her selections for the gala, mentally practicing transitions between pieces, and wondering what it would feel like to be seen, truly seen, by the very people who had been looking through her for years. That night, she stayed late at the restaurant. Long after her shift ended, Ray had given her permission to practice on the grand piano once the last dinner guests had left. In the empty dining room, with only the night cleaning crew for company, Lily played until her fingers ached, rediscovering pieces she had once known by heart and adapting others to suit the sophisticated atmosphere of the upcoming event. As she finally gathered her things to leave, the head of the cleaning crew, an older man named Joe who had worked at the Meridian for over 20 years, paused in his work to speak to her. "Been here a long time," he said, leaning on his mop. "Heard lots of fancy musicians play in this room. None of them ever made me stop what I was doing just to listen." He tapped his chest. "You play from here? That's different." His words followed Lily all the way home, warming her from the inside even as the cool night air nipped at her face. For the first time in years, she felt like herself again. Not just Lily the waitress, but Lily the pianist. Lily the artist. Lily who had something to say through her music. The gala was 2 days away. She had 48 hours to prepare for a comeback she'd never planned to make. But as she fell into bed that night, exhausted but buzzing with a newly awakened energy, one thought kept circling in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, this was where her story really began. The day before the gala, Lily woke up with her heart pounding. She'd been dreaming of performing, but in her dream her fingers had turned to stone halfway through a piece, becoming too heavy to lift from the keys, while the audience stared in disapproval. The feeling of dread lingered as she made her morning coffee, spilling some on the counter when her hands trembled. "Get it together," she muttered to herself, wiping up the spill. "It's just one night. You can do this." But it wasn't just one night. It was a chance to be the person she'd once believed she would become, before life had forced her down a different path. The weight of that possibility pressed on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She spent the morning at her piano, running through her planned selections for the gala. She'd worked with Vivian to create the perfect playlist, elegant classical pieces for the cocktail hour, transitioning to more contemporary arrangements during dinner, all calibrated to create an atmosphere of sophisticated comfort without demanding too much attention from the guests. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ray. "Dress rehearsal at 3. Wear what you'll wear tomorrow." Lily glanced at the black dress hanging on her closet door. After her audition, Vivian had insisted on providing a proper outfit for the performance. The dress had arrived yesterday, a simple but elegant black gown with modest 3/4 sleeves and a neckline that wasn't too revealing, but still looked special. It was on loan from a boutique that often provided clothes for the Meridian staff during special events. The price tag, which Lily had snuck a peek at before removing, was more than her monthly rent. Beside the dress sat a pair of low heels, comfortable enough to work the pedals but dressier than anything she owned. Those were a gift from May, who had shown up at Lily's apartment with them the night before. "I bought these for my cousin's wedding but never wore them," May had explained. Though Lily suspected it wasn't true. "They should fit you. You can't play in those beat-up flats you always wear." The unexpected kindness had nearly made Lily cry. May had hugged her awkwardly before leaving, saying, "Show those rich folks what they've been missing while you've been pouring their wine." Now, as Lily prepared to head to the restaurant for the dress rehearsal, a text from an unknown number appeared on her phone. "Piano tuner finishing up now. This baby sounds even better than yesterday. You're going to kill it. Joe, cleaning crew." Somehow the janitor had gotten her number, probably from the staff contact list. The simple vote of confidence from someone who had no reason to care about her performance made Lily smile for the first time that day. The dress fit perfectly when she tried it on, though it felt strange to be wearing something so fine in her shabby apartment. She carefully packed a small bag with essentials, hairpins, makeup for touch-ups, an energy bar in case she got hungry, and a bottle of water. As an afterthought, she added the faded photograph of her mother that usually sat on her nightstand. She wasn't religious, but having her mom's picture nearby felt like the right kind of good luck charm. When she arrived at the Meridian for the rehearsal, the restaurant was in full pre-event chaos. Florists were arranging elaborate centerpieces at each table. Audio technicians were checking microphones for the speeches that would occur later in the evening. And the catering staff was in constant motion, preparing for the hundreds of guests who would arrive the following day. "There you are," Vivian said, appearing suddenly at Lily's side. Unlike everyone else, the event coordinator appeared completely calm, checking items off on her tablet with serene efficiency. "You look lovely. The dress works. Come, let's get you settled at the piano." The grand piano had been moved to a small raised platform near the windows, positioned so that Lily would be visible to the entire room, but not the center of attention. A spotlight had been installed above, creating a warm pool of light that highlighted the instrument without being too theatrical. "We'll keep this light on you throughout the evening," Vivian explained, guiding Lily to the piano. "Soft enough that it won't distract from the event, but bright enough that people can see you if they choose to look." Lily nodded, too nervous to speak. Being visible was the whole point, she supposed. But the thought of all those eyes potentially turning toward her made her stomach flip. "Let's hear what you've prepared," Vivian said, stepping back to assess the visual as well as the sound. Lily sat at the piano, adjusting her dress before placing her hands on the keys. The instrument was even more responsive than it had been during her audition. The tuner had done an excellent job. She began with her planned opening piece, a gentle Chopin nocturne that would welcome guests as they arrived. As she played, she tried to imagine the room filled with people in evening wear, the murmur of conversations, the clink of glasses. Could her music cut through all that without being intrusive? Would anyone even notice her playing? Perfect volume, Vivian commented when Lily finished the piece. Now show me something from the dinner set. Lily transitioned to a more contemporary arrangement, a sophisticated version of a popular jazz standard. As she played, Ray joined them, nodding approvingly. The governor confirmed this morning, he told Vivian. His security team will be here at 6 to sweep the place. Tell them not to disturb the floral arrangements this time, Vivian replied without taking her eyes off Lily. And remind them that the piano player is staff, not a guest, so they don't try to move her during the security checks. Piano player. The term was both thrilling and strange to hear applied to herself. For one night at least, that's who she would be, not a waitress, but a musician. The rehearsal continued for another hour, with Lily playing selections from each part of her planned program, while Vivian and Ray discussed lighting, timing, and other logistical details around her. It was surreal to be the center of so much attention after years of blending into the background. I think we're set, Vivian said finally. Be here by 5:30 tomorrow. Hair and makeup team can help you get ready in the staff lounge. I've arranged for them to fit you in between the event hosts. Hair and makeup team? Lily echoed, surprised. Nothing too dramatic, Vivian assured her. Just to make sure you look polished under the lights. Part of the overall aesthetic. After the rehearsal, Lily changed back into her regular clothes in the staff bathroom. As she hung up the black dress carefully in her locker, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. She looked exactly the same as she had yesterday and every day before that, the same woman who had served countless meals in this restaurant without anyone looking twice at her. Tomorrow would be different. On her way out, she passed the kitchen where Chef Thomas was reviewing the gala menu with his team. He looked up as she walked by and gave her a nod of acknowledgement, something he'd rarely done in all the years she'd worked there. Heard you play yesterday, he said gruffly. Not bad. Coming from Chef Thomas, who was infamous for never giving compliments, this was high praise. Lily felt a flush of pride warm her face. Thanks. Chef, back in her apartment that evening. Lily tried to distract herself by cleaning, then watching TV, then attempting to read a novel she'd started months ago. Nothing worked. Her mind kept drifting to the gala, imagining every possible scenario, from triumphant success to humiliating failure. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and sat at her own piano in the dark. She played softly, mindful of her neighbors running through the more challenging passages from tomorrow's program. The familiar ritual calmed her nerves somewhat, but a persistent flutter of anxiety remained in her chest. Just before falling asleep, she checked her phone one last time and found a new message from May. Left you something in your locker. For good luck tomorrow. Curious what it might be, Lily made a mental note to look for it when she arrived at the restaurant the next day. Whatever lay ahead, she was grateful to discover that she wasn't facing it entirely alone. Somehow, without her noticing, she had built small connections with the people around her. Ray with his gruff efficiency, Vivian with her professional courtesy, Chef Thomas with his reluctant approval, Joe from the cleaning crew with his unexpected kindness, and May with her practical friendship. None of them had known about her past, her training or her talent until 2 days ago. Now they were all in their own ways helping her prepare for a moment she'd thought would never come. As she drifted off to sleep, Lily realized that regardless of how the gala turned out, something had already changed. For the first time in years, she was allowing herself to be seen, not just as the person she'd become, but as the person she'd always been underneath. The realization both terrified and liberated her, following her down into dreams that this time held no stone fingers or disapproving gazes, only music, flowing from her hands like water and the strange, almost forgotten feeling of joy. The day of the gala arrived with an unexpected gift, a perfect autumn day in New York. Clear skies painted in crisp blue, the city bathed in golden afternoon light. Lily took it as a good omen as she got ready to leave her apartment. She'd spent the morning doing gentle hand exercises, careful not to strain her fingers before the performance and trying to keep her nerves under control with deep breathing and positive self-talk. You've got this, she whispered to her reflection as she grabbed her bag. Just like practicing at home, only with better lighting. When she arrived at the Meridian at 5:30, the transformation of the restaurant took her breath away. The usual elegant dining room had become something magical. Soft lighting cast a warm glow throughout the space. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above tables dressed in midnight blue linens. Centerpieces of white orchids and silver branches created the impression of an enchanted winter forest. At each place setting, a small engraved card detailed the evening's schedule and the charity cause, a foundation supporting music education in underfunded schools. The irony wasn't lost on Lily. Here she was, a classically trained pianist who'd had to abandon her education, playing at a fundraiser to help other young musicians pursue their dreams. There you are. Vivian appeared, clipboard in hand, looking immaculate in a simple black dress that somehow screamed expense, without trying. The hair and makeup team is waiting in the staff lounge. We're running on schedule, but let's not dawdle. Lily followed her through the kitchen where the culinary team was working with intense focus, plating appetizers and preparing the first course. Chef Thomas looked up briefly from inspecting a tray of delicate pastry shells, giving Lily a quick nod before returning to his work. In the staff lounge, 2 stylists were waiting with an array of makeup and hair tools. May was there too, already changed into her server's uniform for the evening, arranging something in Lily's locker. You're just in time, May said, grinning as she closed the locker door. Your surprise can wait until after your makeover. The next 45 minutes passed in a blur of hairspray, makeup brushes and gentle instructions to look, up or turn slightly. The stylist kept the makeup elegant and understated, enhancing rather than masking, and arranged Lily's hair in a simple but sophisticated updo that would stay secure throughout her performance. When they finished, May handed Lily a small compact mirror. Take a look. Lily stared at her reflection, momentarily speechless. She looked like herself but polished, refined, like the version of herself she might have become if life had followed a different path. The woman in the reflection looked like someone who belonged at the gala, not just serving it. Now for your surprise, May said, opening Lily's locker with a flourish. Inside, hanging next to the black dress, was a slim velvet box and a small card. Lily opened the card first. In May's neat handwriting it read, "These belong to my grandmother. She was a pianist too, though not as good as you. Borrow them tonight." Knock 'em dead. The velvet box contained a pair of vintage pearl earrings, simple, elegant, and perfect with the dress. Lily felt tears threatening to ruin her newly applied makeup. "I can't take these," she said, trying to hand the box back to May. "You're not taking them. You're borrowing them," May corrected, helping Lily fasten the earrings in place. Besides, Grandma would be happy to know they're being worn by someone with real talent, not just gathering dust in my drawer. Before Lily could respond, Vivian returned. "Time to get dressed. The security team has finished their sweep and guests will start arriving in 30 minutes. Changing into the black dress, Lily felt a transformation taking place, not just physical, but something deeper. For years, she'd kept her musician self locked away, a painful reminder of dreams deferred. Tonight, she was letting that part of herself out of its cage, allowing it to breathe again. Once dressed, Lily made her way to the piano. The grand instrument waited on its small platform, lid raised, gleaming under the soft spotlight. She sat on the bench, adjusting her posture and the height to ensure comfort during the long performance ahead. Her fingers hovered over the keys, not yet playing, just feeling their cool smoothness beneath her fingertips. "Remember, you start as soon as the first guests begin arriving," Vivian said, checking something off on her clipboard. "Background music only until the cocktail hour is in full swing. Then you can play more noticeable pieces." Lily nodded, suddenly too nervous to speak. The enormity of what she was about to do crashed over her. After years of invisibility, she was about to be seen, really seen, by the very people she'd served anonymously for so long. What if she froze? What if she couldn't remember the pieces she'd practiced? What if— Stop thinking so hard. A gruff voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Joe from the cleaning crew was adjusting something on the spotlight above her. "You're going to be fine. Better than fine. How do you know?" Lily asked, grateful for the distraction. "Been watching people come and go in this place for 20 years, Joe said, climbing down from his small ladder. "The real deal always stands out. You're the real deal." With that simple vote of confidence, he disappeared back into the service areas, leaving Lily alone at the piano as the first guests began to arrive. She took a deep breath and began to play, her fingers finding the opening notes of a gentle Debussy piece. The music flowed from her hands, creating a subtle backdrop to the increasing hum of conversation as the room filled with guests in formal attire. Most people didn't notice her at first, too busy greeting each other and accepting flutes of champagne from circulating servers. Lily was grateful for the gradual start. It allowed her to settle into the performance without too much scrutiny. She transitioned smoothly between pieces, watching the room from beneath lowered lashes as she played. There were faces she recognized, regular patrons whose coffee preferences and wine choices she knew by heart. Though they'd likely never recognize her outside her waitress uniform, she spotted Mr. Wilson from table 12, the one who always wanted extra lemons, now laughing with a group near the bar. The Broadway producer, who tipped exactly 15%, never more or less, was deep in conversation with a woman Lily recognized from magazine covers. As the cocktail hour progressed, Lily's confidence grew. Her fingers remembered their training, moving across the keys with increasing assurance. She began to add more complex pieces to her repertoire, still keeping them appropriate as background music, but allowing more of her skill to show through. She noticed a small group forming near the piano, guests who had drifted closer, drawn by the music. An older woman in a midnight blue gown stood just at the edge of Lily's peripheral vision, watching intently. A distinguished-looking man with silver hair paused in his conversation, head tilted slightly as he listened. Emboldened, Lily shifted into a more technically challenging piece, a Chopin etude that had once been one of her signature performances at Juilliard. Her hands moved with fluid grace across the keys, the melody soaring above the complicated left-hand patterns. When she finished, she was surprised to hear a smattering of applause from the small group that had gathered. The woman in the midnight blue gown stepped forward. "That was exquisite," she said. "Chopin's etude in E major, one of my favorites. Do you play professionally?" Before Lily could answer, Vivian appeared at her side. "Our Lily is quite the hidden talent," she said smoothly. "We're fortunate to have her with us tonight." "Indeed," the woman agreed, studying Lily with newfound interest. "I'm Eleanor Blackwood, board member of the New York Symphony. We should talk later." Lily's heart skipped a beat at the name. Eleanor Blackwood was a legendary patron of the arts, known for discovering and supporting emerging musicians. And she wanted to talk to Lily. Later. Vivian gave Lily a significant look before guiding Eleanor away to greet other important guests. The message was clear. Keep playing. Don't get distracted. There would be time for networking later. Returning her attention to the piano, Lily launched into the dinner portion of her program. The guests were being seated now, the ambient noise of the room shifting as people found their tables and settled in for the meal. As she played, Lily noticed more and more glances directed her way. People were whispering to each other, gesturing subtly toward the piano. She was no longer invisible background music, she was being noticed. A server passed close to the piano. Not May, but another colleague Lily had worked with for years. The woman gave Lily a subtle thumbs up as she balanced a tray of appetizers. Another server, passing with water pitchers, whispered, "You're killing it," without breaking stride. Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the spotlight above. These people who had worked alongside her day after day were proud of her. They were witnessing her transformation from one of them into something else entirely. And instead of jealousy or resentment, they were offering support. As the main course was served, Lily transitioned to more contemporary pieces, sophisticated arrangements of jazz standards and modern classics that complemented the evening's elegant atmosphere. She was in her element now, the initial nerves replaced by the pure joy of performing, of sharing her gift after keeping it hidden for so long. She barely noticed when Ray approached the piano, waiting for her to finish a piece before leaning in to speak quietly. "You're doing great," he said. "The governor asked who you are. So did half the board members." He looked almost smug, as if he'd discovered her himself. "There's going to be a short break for speeches after dessert. Take 15 minutes, get some water, rest your hands, then be ready for the final set." Lily nodded, suddenly aware of how hungry and thirsty she was. She'd be so focused on the performance that she'd forgotten basic needs. As she played the final notes of her pre-speech set, she glanced up to find more than a few pairs of eyes watching her with appreciation. The invisible waitress was invisible no more. During the break, Lily slipped away to the staff area for a quick moment of respite. Her fingers ached pleasantly, The good kind of tired that comes from doing what you love. She flexed them carefully as she sipped water, watching the banquet staff hustle around her, preparing to serve dessert after the speeches ended. "Hey, piano girl." May appeared, breathless from running trays. "You're trending." "What?" Lily nearly choked on her water. May held up her phone, showing a local social media feed where several guests had posted photos of the gala. In several of them, Lily was visible at the piano, her face partially hidden but her posture capturing a sense of gracefulness as she played. "Who is the mystery pianist at the Meridian Charity Gala?" May read from one post. "Absolutely stunning performance, 3 fire emojis." Lily shook her head in disbelief. "They're probably just being nice." "No, they're not," May insisted, scrolling through more comments. "Listen to this one. Expecting the usual background music at tonight's benefit. Instead, witnessing what can only be described as hidden talent of the highest caliber." She looked up at Lily with a grin. "That's from Eleanor Blackwood." The Eleanor Blackwood. Before Lily could respond, Ray stuck his head into the break room. "5 minutes, Lily, they're wrapping up the speeches." She nodded, suddenly nervous again, but in a different way. During the first half of her performance, she'd played beautifully but safely, pieces chosen to complement the evening without drawing too much attention. Now, with people actually listening, actually seeing her, what should she play? As she made her way back to the piano, weaving between tables where guests were finishing their desserts, an idea formed. She'd been playing what she thought the audience wanted to hear. Maybe it was time to play what she needed to express. She settled back onto the bench, adjusted her dress, and placed her hands on the keys. The room was still buzzing with conversation following the speeches, but as she began to play, a hush gradually spread outward from the piano like ripples in water. She'd chosen Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. Not the full orchestral piece, of course, but her own arrangement that captured the emotional core of the work. It was bold, perhaps too bold for background music, but Lily no longer cared. This piece had been her favorite during her Juilliard days, the one that had made her teachers first take notice of her potential. The music flowed from her fingers with increasing intensity, the rich, complex emotions of the piece filling the room. This wasn't polite dinner music. This was a statement, a declaration of who she was and what she could do. She poured everything into it, her lost years, her deferred dreams, her quiet persistence in keeping her talent alive even when no one was there to witness it. People stopped eating, stopped talking. Waiters paused in their service, standing still with trays half lifted. All eyes turned toward the piano as Lily played with a passion that transformed the simple spotlight above her into something almost magical. When she reached the crescendo, her hands dancing across the keys with speed and precision that came from thousands of hours of practice, she closed her eyes, letting the music carry her away. For that moment there was no gala, no audience, no years of serving drinks and taking orders. There was only the pure joy of creation, of bringing something beautiful into the world. As the final notes resonated through the silent room, Lily opened her eyes to find every person in the place watching her. For one terrible second she feared she'd made a mistake, gone too far, played too intensely for what was meant to be an elegant background to wealthy people's charitable giving. Then the applause began. It started with a single person, the woman in the midnight blue gown, Eleanor Blackwood, and quickly spread throughout the room. People rose to their feet, napkins dropping forgotten to the floor, glasses of wine abandoned on tables as they clapped and, in some cases, wiped away tears. Lily sat frozen at the piano, overwhelmed by the response. This wasn't polite appreciation. This was genuine, spontaneous recognition. They weren't seeing a waitress who happened to play piano. They were seeing a pianist, an artist deserving of their full attention and respect. From the corner of her eye, she caught sight of the kitchen staff peering through the service doors, Chef Thomas among them with an uncharacteristic smile on his normally stern face. Ray stood near the bar, looking both shocked and smugly pleased, as if he'd discovered a precious gem that had been hiding in plain sight. Vivian was frantically typing something on her phone, her professional composure momentarily cracked by excitement. As the applause began to fade, Lily realized she needed to play something else. The evening wasn't over yet. But before she could begin, Eleanor Blackwood approached the piano, elegant and poised in her designer gown. "My dear," she said, her voice carrying easily through the now quiet room, "would you indulge us with your name?" It seems we've all been enjoying the talents of someone we should know. Lily swallowed hard, suddenly aware that she was being asked to claim her identity as a musician in front of hundreds of strangers. "Lily Chen," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Well, Lily Chen," Eleanor continued. "I think I speak for everyone here when I say we would be honored to hear one more piece. It wasn't a request so much as a coronation, a public acknowledgement. That Lily was no longer providing background music but giving a performance worthy of their full attention." She nodded, took a deep breath, and began to play again. This time choosing a piece she'd composed herself during those quiet Tuesday mornings alone in her apartment. It was simpler than the Rachmaninoff, but no less heartfelt, a melody that spoke of loss and perseverance, of dreams deferred but not abandoned. When she finished, the applause was just as enthusiastic. Eleanor leaned in close to the piano. "We need to talk, Miss Chen. Not just about tonight, but about your future. I have a feeling it might be quite different from what you had planned." The remainder of the evening passed in a blur. Lily continued to play as guests gradually began to leave, many of them stopping by the piano to express their appreciation or, in some cases, hand her business cards with invitations to discuss opportunities. By the time the last guest departed, Lily's fingers were truly tired, but her spirit felt lighter than it had in years. As the staff began the post-event cleanup, she remained at the piano, reluctant to leave the instrument that had reconnected her with her true self. "Not bad for a waitress," Ray said, approaching with a glass of champagne that he handed to her. "Though I have a feeling you might be giving your notice soon." "I don't know about that," Lily said honestly. One good night didn't erase the realities of life, her bills, her tiny apartment, her practical needs. "But thank you for giving me the chance." "Don't thank me," Ray shrugged. "You did all the work. Years of it, apparently, while none of us were paying attention." May appeared, still in her server's uniform, but with her hair now pulled free from its tight bun. "Some of us noticed," she said with a smile. "We just didn't know what we were noticing." She sat on the bench beside Lily, nudging her with her shoulder. "So, piano girl, what happens now?" "Now," said a new voice, "we discuss the future." Eleanor Blackwood had returned, having apparently stepped out only to make a phone call. She pulled up a chair beside the piano, sitting with the easy confidence of someone used to taking charge. "Ms. Chen, I don't make a habit of approaching staff at events, but extraordinary talent deserves extraordinary measures." She removed a slim business card from her clutch and handed it to Lily. "I serve on several arts boards, including the scholarship committee at Juilliard. I understand you were once a student there?" Lily nodded, stunned that this woman had already learned so much about her in such a short time. "They have a special program for returning adult students, former enrollees who had to leave due to circumstances beyond their control." Eleanor's eyes were kind but shrewd. "Financial support is available, as is performance opportunity. It wouldn't be the same path you might have taken years ago, but it could be a new one." I don't know what to say," Lily managed, the business card feeling impossibly heavy in her hand. "Say you'll consider it," Eleanor replied. "Say you'll call my office on Monday. Say you won't let fear keep you from sharing a gift like yours with the world." After Eleanor left, Lily sat in silence, the enormity of the evening's events washing over her. Chef Thomas approached, untying his apron. "You got the good stuff," he said simply. "Don't waste it." Joe from the cleaning crew nodded in agreement as he began mopping around the dessert tables. "Told you were the real deal." As the staff finished cleaning and began to leave, calling out goodbyes and congratulations as they went, Lily remained at the piano, playing softly, almost to herself. The piece was gentle, thoughtful, a conversation between her past and her possible future. May, the last to leave, paused at the door. "Don't stay too late," she said. "And don't forget to return my grandmother's earrings. I'll need them back when you're famous." Lily laughed, the sound mingling with the notes from the piano. "I'm a long way from famous." "Maybe," May shrugged. "But you're a long way from where you were yesterday, too." After everyone had gone, Lily played one final piece, the lullaby her mother used to hum when Lily was a child. The simple melody echoed through the empty restaurant, a private thank you to the woman who had believed in her talent first and most faithfully. As the last note faded away, Lily closed the piano lid gently and stood up, Tomorrow would bring decisions, possibilities, perhaps even new challenges. But tonight had brought something she'd thought was lost forever. The certainty that beneath the person she'd become out of necessity, still lived the person she'd always been meant to be. And that person, the real Lily Chen, had just taken her first step back into the light.